right, thank you guys for tuning in today. This is the Racine Case BSU. My name is Davion Robinson. I'm the president of the Black Student Union. We're going to go around the table and do some quick introductions.
All right, my name is Jalea Harper. I'm a junior at Case High School, and I'm a member of NHS.
My name is Valerie Harmon. I'm vice president of BSU.
My name is Zamira Hunter, and I'm a junior at Horlake.
All right, and today we are interviewing Anwar Jamison. Nice to meet you.
Nice to be here. Nice to be here. Back at Case High. I'm loving this. Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's good. So, first off, we're gonna. I know earlier we were here in the theater doing a little discussion, I guess you could say.
Yes. Yes. That was great.
You like that? Okay.
Since I wasn't here, can you talk about what you talked about?
Yes, absolutely. So most of it was just geared towards different. It was mostly set up as a Q&A session, which was cool. So students had a chance to ask questions. We spoke a lot about goal setting, motivation, how to advice for attaining your goals and getting where you want to get. I specifically spoke about Ghana and Africa because I shot a movie there entitled Coming to Africa, which is out on digital platforms now. And I talked about some of the difference. And when you go to Ghana, you see how savage we really are in America. You'll go over there like, man, we crazy. Because they don't do none of this stuff we do. So we had a great conversation, and that was kind of some of the highlights.
That's what's up. Definitely. So where'd you grow up? Did you have any family dynamics or any really big obstacles you had to overcome?
I grew up here in Racine on the south side. But what was cool about my upbringing in Racine, I actually early on the south side, and we know in Racine a lot of times things can be divided by your high schools, community centers, all of that. Mm-hmm. We moved a lot. I wouldn't even call that an obstacle. Like when I was young, I didn't understand why or whatever, but every few years we moved. We weren't in the same house for years. But we went from the south side. My grandmother's house was on the north side, and that would always be like the place we would live in between if we moved somewhere. So I had friends growing up around her house, and then we moved right on 6th Street, on Jones Street, right over 6th Street. So I had friends there, and then right on 12th Street. So I had friends there, and then we ended up back on the south side when I was about 11, 12. And then I finished up, my schooling over there. So I moved around, and I had a lot of friends in different parts of the city that I, see to this day, and which is good. Overall, it was great. I always knock on wood. I don't have a hard luck story, really loving household. I mean, my parents divorced when I was 8 or 9, but it was so much love in the house. Things always affect you, exactly. But it wasn't a situation where I knew it affected me a certain way or anything. I had a lot of uncles and aunts. My family is huge. My mother was one of 16 children. So I didn't really miss. We just thought it was normal. My first cousins is 40-something of us, 50-something, and we're close.
Right.
First cousins. People come around our family wow, I can't believe how close your family is. So I didn't really miss or want for a lot, even though, we didn't have a lot of money. A lot of people store. You don't know you don't have money when you're young sometimes. So I thought it was all cool. I love my childhood. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, that's great. That's definitely real good. I know you went to Case. How was that?
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. We ran through the halls. We're responsible for some of the rule changes that you guys can't even enjoy now because of us. We were talking about the main hallway earlier and how there were benches there. And some of the students I was talking to didn't know it used to be benches there. And it was right after us, they stopped allowing students. We used to eat lunch. And about half of lunch, eat lunch, and then rush to the main hallway for the rest of lunch and sit on the benches and go out there. The main hallway was like a social club during lunchtime or before school and all of that. It was really cool, and just talent shows, air band, things like that. It was a fun time. The 90s. I think a lot of what's missing is that whole talent show, dance contest, dance against other people vibe, That was a big thing when we were growing up in Racine. Talent shows at the schools, the best singers, the best dancers, the best rappers, we were really, really into that type of thing. So I enjoyed a lot of that during that time. And my time at Case, it was great. A lot of the teachers, I had a couple teachers who encouraged me, some others who didn't. I have some stories that motivated me for negative ways, but it's all part of what makes you.
Exactly. Definitely. Yeah, we recently just had our talent show here at Case High School, the Racine Case Black Student Union talent show with Kiana Kramer as well.
Okay.
We kind of trying to bring it back, man. Trying to bring that community feel back, man.
You got to do that.
We got to do that, man.
Yeah, y'all generation have to get that back, man. Sometimes the social aspect is different. It's not your fault. You all didn't make the culture, but I was at a pep rally down in Memphis where I stayed one time at my daughter's school and was like, where's the pep? Like, it's like sitting in here like, you're supposed to be excited. This is the pep rally. It is, I'm sure you all are not like that. You're probably very pepped up at your pep rallies, Yeah.
Definitely. So what's your passion? What do you do?
My passion is writing first and foremost, and that led me to other passions such as the filmmaking. But from a very young age, I was able to identify that writing was what I wanted to do. It was what I was great at from a young age. You start getting that confirmation from teachers and people around you, like looking at you differently. You turn in an essay like, oh, okay, you're different. You should try to do something with this. I got a lot of that. And once I zeroed in on that, I just knew that in some form or fashion, I would be writing. Like I have to be. Back then I thought it would be as a novelist. I wanted to be the next great black writer, Richard Wright, who wrote Black Boy and Native Son and a lot of great books. I was like, I'm going to be the next Richard Wright, is what I used to say when I was young. And then I got older and ended up going to film school kind of as I was already an English teacher, English professor at that time. I went to film school like in my later 20s. It was kind of almost like a shift. It wasn't something I thought about much. And then that became very much a passion. I'm directing. And then I realized, wow, I can take my love for writing but put it on the screen. And this is like an elevated level of writing. And especially since people watch more movies than they read books nowadays.
Exactly.
It made sense. So, but writing first and foremost in all different types of forms is my passion.
That's what's up. Definitely. What got you into writing? Did you ever was it just the people around you just telling you about your writing, or?
I just loved to read from a very early age. So it just became my favorite thing. It was natural. So then writing went along with it. I guess I just wanted to do what the authors were doing as I was reading my childhood books. So I can remember as early as, I always say 7 years old. It might have been earlier, but taking like a stack of paper and folding it. And I had my little small stapler and I would make the spine and put the titles on it. And I was writing like, 20-something page books, and I was about 7, just like, oh, I'm going to write another book. And here's this story. And I really just always loved it. And I just always encourage people, when you find that, I always want people to feel like I feel about that. So when somebody says to me, I don't know what I want to do in my life, I don't know. I'm like, it has to be something that you love, that you just roll out the bed. If you could get paid to do it, you would do it. It's not always obvious how you can get paid from it. But writing is more how people think, oh, okay, you can write books or movies. Some things it's going to take a little creativity to make it pay, but that's what you should focus on. If it's something you naturally did well from a young age, better than the people around you, and you love doing it, I just feel like find a way. There's a way to turn that into something that will pay you and let you sustain your lifestyle.
Definitely. That's what's up. Good information right there.
Yeah, that's the key, I tell, because there's a lot of miserable people with some money in the bank. I gotta go to do work and I hate my job. And they be, yeah, it's Friday. I get the end of the Monday, they depressed. Like, I gotta go back. But they got money, But I never wanted to live like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, back to your childhood. You said your childhood, you like reading books and stuff. Do you have like a favorite book or?
The Outsider by Richard Wright was one of my favorite books. That was a favorite. Like a lot of people, the autobiography of Malcolm X was something that was very impactful to me. Those are two that jump out. Like Richard Wright's whole catalog, Native Son, Black Boy. I used to just go through his catalog every few years and be reading it again. Like it was the first time. It was something about him. There's one, Man Child in the Promised Land, by Claude Brown. That's one of my favorite books. And I always point that out because it talks about the drug epidemic in Harlem in the 1950s. Really, that's not what the book is about. It's his whole coming-of-age story. But how he described how Harlem changed in the 1950s when heroin first came out and hit. I was like, wow, this is, when people talk about violence now, how is there so much violence in the community? You know, there's a direct correlation. There's always drugs there. You look at any epidemic of violence. Today is pills. The 80s, 90s, it was crack. Then it was heroin. That really let me see, like, okay, he's never a coincidence. I was like, this sounds just like, you know, Chicago, Racine, New York, LA, 80s, 90s when crack was around, you know, and he just described seeing it go from being this great place where there were no murders and no crime and heroin hit, and then fast forward and it's what they got. So that book always stuck with me. I like coming of age stories and hearing, you know, people's lives and how they became who they are.
Definitely.
Okay, so you said one movie that you did was Coming to Africa. Like, what are your other movies about, including that one?
Okay, I have my first movie is called Funeral Arrangements. It's a comedy. It's an underground cult classic. I have to put it on streaming platforms. This was before streaming platforms. I shot that in 2008. Fresh out of film school, we were like, we're going to make a movie. We was graduating young, hungry. I was the one with the script because I was a writer. And it's about, most of the things I write, it'll start out as something that actually happened, and then in my mind I'll twist it like, but what if this really happened? So I had a job when I was in college. I had transferred to University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. I was at Whitewater. I had this job that I hated that was letting me know this is why you're in college, because you don't want to work like this in real life. And I told them I had to go to a funeral because it was somewhere I was trying to go. I couldn't remember. And they were like really strict about it was a point system. Like if you get 2.5 points, you know, like a point was an absence, being late was a half a point, then you're fired. And they were really firing people. And I was like on my last one, I couldn't call in. So I was like, I told my supervisor, I need to go to a funeral. My uncle died. And he was like, well, yeah, bring me back a copy of the obituary when you come. And I was like, okay. And I was like, God, he asked me for a copy of the obituary. So in my writer's mind, in real life, I didn't bring it and he didn't ask any questions and I didn't get fired. But as a writer, I was like, what if a character got stuck like that and really went to somebody's funeral just to try to grab an obituary, just to take the work? And that's what happens in the movie. The character ends up at a funeral. They get mistaken for somebody else and it spins off into this whole adventure because he lied to get out of going to work. So people were really like, oh, you know, that was my kind of coming out party. The second movie I did was called 5 Steps to a Conversation, and it was about a job I actually had in real life. I just fictionalized it a little bit, but it was this cult-like environment. It's really like a cult. There's like Facebook groups dedicated to people like, man, they ruined my life and I made it out. You know, it was this place where they would find a bunch of young, hungry people like you and teach you these sale tactics and have you going door to door selling things. But the way they would put the battery in you and wind you up, they had you thinking it was this great opportunity at the end of the rainbow. Like in a year, you're going to have your own office and be making like $250,000 a year and all this stuff. That never happened for anybody. So I made a movie about that.
Right.
My third movie is called A Bitter Pill to Swallow. It's a documentary. A very serious documentary about prescription pills, that epidemic, and how it's affecting the community, specifically young people and people your age. Is terrible. You know, I look around sometimes how we got where we are. You know, a lot of the rappers, I mean, it's crazy how free people are to rap about pills now. Like it's cool, and it's not. And a lot of people go down that path following their favorite rapper who raps about, it's crazy. So I did a documentary about that. It was before people really started talking about the opioid epidemic. It hadn't really hit the news as much. So that was a documentary. Then my fourth movie was Coming to Africa. We went to Ghana and shot it, and I really just wanted to show a side of Africa no one ever talks about, no one ever shows. They gave us this one side of you all the time with this rural, out in the jungle somewhere with animals environment where people don't even wear clothes half the time and all this weird stuff. And now, you know, you all have it a little better because of YouTube, and you know, there's a lot of cinema, a lot of movies coming out of Africa now, specifically Nigeria, Well, now some people know it's not like that, but at the time when I was doing this, not as much. So I just wanted to show city life, in Ghana. My cousin was there at the time. He was showing me things. I was like, I have to do a movie about this. So I'm like, I'm seeing the malls, movie theaters, all of this stuff. When I went over there, that's how I personally move around when I'm in Ghana. One day, I'm not an outdoor person, so I might end up on a safari or something one day, like a bucket list thing, but I'm not really interested in that. Like when I'm there, I want my Wi-Fi, I want my AC in the house. I want to go to the mall, I want to go to a nice restaurant, so I stay in the city. So I wanted to show a movie that really kind of dispels all those stereotypes where all you see is the city. Like, this is Africa? Like, what? They here? Like, that place is in Africa? And that's really what the movie is like. There's no animals in the movie, anything. You see people who are just living their life in the city doing the same things that we would do here. But it's a comedy. It's a romantic comedy. So, and I actually ended up playing a lead role in the movie, which is a whole nother thing. I act as well. But that's a long story. The actor who was supposed to play the lead role literally got scared to go to Africa at the last minute. He was making up excuses of why he didn't want to go. But it was like, when it came down to it, I'm like, that's really what it is. So we're over there in Ghana on Saturday. He's supposed to be getting on the plane. We're supposed to start shooting on Monday. And he's giving me these excuses, and then he didn't get on the plane. And now we're stuck over there, and the whole crew is looking at me like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to play the role. And they looking at me like, oh, you don't look like you can act. They have no idea I can act. So everybody was terrified. I ended up having to play the role. It came out nice. That's on all streaming platforms pretty much except Netflix. That's when people be like, where is it? Like everywhere except Netflix. Amazon, Apple TV, Google Play, Tubi now, Tubi for free. So it's on a lot of platforms.
And one more time, what's the name of that movie?
Coming to Africa. So just like Coming to America in reverse, right? Obviously, I wanted to play off of the title. The plots are completely different except for instead of two guys coming from Africa to America and getting lost in this adventure, you got two guys coming from America going to Africa, knowing nothing about the culture, and just you see the adventure that they end up on. So that's called Coming to Africa. So the fifth movie is Coming to Africa 2. We just shot that in October. I'm excited. I got some news coming. It's rolling out that I can't even say yet. But the festival run is going to start soon for that. So we'll be doing festivals. In the summer, we'll do a release, a theatrical release. We're going to take that movie on tour because when we shot Coming to Africa, the first one, COVID hit right after we shot it. I was like, so I didn't get, this was finally supposed to be a nice theater rollout and do all of that. So this time we get to do that. People are back in the theaters, comfortable moving around. So yeah, Coming to Africa 2 will be later this year. Yes, starting in the summer.
Something to look forward to, man.
Yeah. Y'all gotta check Coming to Africa out. Check that out.
Definitely
Especially now that it's on Tubi, like people have no excuse. I'd be like, everybody be like, I see you doing this. I'd be like, come on, man, you still ain't some people hesitate to click that rental for $3.99. Like, come on, man. So now it's on Tubi. You can pull up anywhere and just watch for free. So there's no excuses. Yeah, check that out. It's a family-oriented movie. Like it's one of those you can watch with everybody. It's just kind of a good time. So yeah.
Definitely.
Which one do you think, like when you filmed it or like created it, which one do you think you enjoyed the most?
Well, enjoyed that. I would have to say it's a tie between Funeral Arrangements because it was my first one and we were just young, hungry, fresh out of college. Like, let's do it. Like, we gonna make an actual movie. So we just had that youthful energy of just let's go. So that was special for that. And then Coming to Africa, just being there in Ghana, doing something that sounded so far-fetched to most people. Like, if I could I try to step outside of myself and imagine what this looked like to other people. I'm walking around like, yeah, I'm going to Africa to shoot this movie. And people like, okay, yeah, okay. I'm like, he don't believe me. He thinks it's crazy, And I'm like, that do sound crazy. I'm having to say to myself. So to get there and just be embraced over there, and I got ties now. I got a brother and sister over there, as I call them, PY and Basira. My little sister, I call her, she was just over here staying with me and my family for a couple weeks from Ghana. I got bonds that I made over there. We never made another movie. Like, we locked in. We family for life. I got some really, really, really great friends over there. So to move around with them and the talent in the movie, that's the thing. So I have Khalil Kane from here that the people who know him from here know him mostly from Juice. He played Raheem with Tupac and them back in the day. He was on Girlfriends, played Darnell, Love Jones, Tyler Perry, so that was my American star. But everybody else is basically Ghanaian, but it's like, so the people here don't know, but over there, they're the A-list of the A-list, like the cast I have. So moving around is funny, to kind of see that, to see how people respond to them, because it's like you go to a whole nother country and over there, it's like moving around with, Taraji and Denzel and Halle Berry or somebody, I'm just sitting there like, this is crazy, and then I get to come back here and just jump and chill and be regular. But then it's fun to jump over there and run around with them, Like we had a police escort, going to the one of our TV interviews, like in front of us, taking us through traffic. I was like, this is crazy.
Oh, man.
So, so I would say it's a tie between those two for different reasons. Yeah.
I had a question, like tying back to the beginning of what you said, like from like your childhood, like how you always like felt like you were destined to be a writer.
Yeah.
Like during like high school and stuff, did you ever feel pressured to like make like a certain choice that wouldn't lead you into the direction you wanted to go?
All the time. And it's not always direct peer pressure, but it definitely affected me. Like my grades in high school were not what they should have been. When I was at Case, I did enough. But in the back of my mind, it was always like, well, you going to college. Like, I'm going to go to college, so I'm going to strive to get all these A's, and it's going to be good enough. And that's what I did, good enough. I mean, I would get my A's in English, and then science and math. Ooh, I might get on punishment, because I might just slip, And I really was, the pressure, the peer pressure wasn't like overt. It wasn't like, hey, you need to do this and stop trying to be smart. But you're at that age, you want to be your friends, you want to do this. My clique had a reputation. I would just say it. We used to run through the city like that's us. Yeah, when we show up, recognize the party don't start till we get here. Like we had, we had a run. So because of that, my grades would suffer. I did feel kind of that pressure, but there was always something in me that I look at it like I would never slip all the way. I always had this awareness that, we doing all this now, but 2-3 years, I'm going to be in college. I don't know what y'all going to, like, I hope y'all, end up with me. And I had a couple friends who ended up saying, I never thought about going to college until you. So leading by example, I did end up pulling a couple people along that way, but I didn't used to really try to preach to them or like, I need to stop doing. Like, no, I was just like, man, you see how this going to end up, don't you? Like, but when you're in the middle of it, it was just going. So I definitely did kind of feel a lot of that pressure to fit in. And I always managed to fit in enough. Like I always say, I never got away from my friends. Like people say, if you don't leave those people alone, you're not going, like if the people you hang around, I can tell how your life going to end up. I was like, I never left my friends alone. And some of them now, I had a couple of my best friends in prison, doing life. Like friends who stood next to me at my wedding, like crazy things. And like, and one of our other best friends, did 11, 12 years in federal prison, for drugs. And I used to be right there with him, like, all of that stuff. But it was just something in me that's like, okay, I can be around this and not be it. I just wasn't impressed with the cars. I wasn't like, they'd be like, you see so-and-so? I was like, yeah, that's cool, huh? And myself, I'm like, what kind of car? I'm going to have a way better car than that. Like, and I'm 30, like I can wait. My thing was delayed gratification. So there was definitely some pressure though. I wasn't perfect. So I did some goofy stuff that could have, went the wrong, that one day when you're at wrong place, wrong time. It was some things you look back like, man, if that went a different way, my life would be crazy. But that's why I always say God. I always take it back to God, and I believe in God. And I just say, because when they say God knows your heart, like the goofy stuff I would do, he knew I wasn't really trying to be involved. I'm really not selling dope. I really don't care about money. I'm really not out here trying to hustle. I'm really not out here doing this stuff. So if I happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, I feel like I kind of got protected because I really was not trying to do any of that. But I was just always there.
Yeah, so what was the one thing that you knew like that like confirmed for you like that you were really gonna like take off with your writing and your movies?
One thing
like the one opportunity.
One thing that confirmed it. That's hard to say. I could say, well, it's hard to say one moment, but there was a moment that I could say kind of two at Whitewater, if I want to say that. I transferred, so I went to the University of Memphis first. By my junior year, some of the friends who followed me to college, they were kind of dragging me down. They ain't gonna mind me saying that because they know it's the truth. I was there by myself. I was getting all A's and B's my freshman and sophomore year. Y'all show up and it turned into a party house. We getting eviction notices to my too much noise. I was like, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to Whitewater to transfer. Y'all messing me up. Like, but the first time my grades was dropping in college. So I ended up at Whitewater, changed my major. That's one of the things I spoke about. Well, maybe that was at one of the schools earlier, but I was majoring in information systems, which I had no business. So a lot of people had already talked me out of majoring in English or English. Like, what are you going to do with that? What kind of job can you get with English? So I listened to them like, well, I always write, but they're like, do something in computers. You know, you can make a lot of money. So information systems, terrible choice. I ended up hating that. So my grades were dropping. I transferred to Whitewater and I went to this advisor, Dr. Trudell, that's his name, my professor. I sat down with him like, look, because I was already junior. I knew what I wanted to do. I was like, if these are all the classes I want to be done by next year, it would have been more like a year and a half. I want to be finished. Can I load up and take all this plan? And he was listening like, okay, I'll try it. He didn't say much, but it wasn't until it came time for me to graduate and I was dean's list. Every time when I got there, it was English. I'm knocking this out the park. It's straight A's. And he came back to me like, well, you were in my office that one day. Like, I thought you were just trying to do English because you thought this was the easy way out. I was like, this guy's about to fall on his face, you know, but he didn't know that was really my gift. He was like, but you showed me, you know, and he really, in his class, is like, wow, you can really write. So his confirmation was one that really made me say, okay, you'll go somewhere with this. And there was another professor, my film professor, Davidson Zeals, I believe was her name. So we had to write, this is why I started the movie Funeral Arrangements, the script. What turned into my first movie later. We had a screenwriting class, and the final project was that we had to write the first act of a movie. And it was, you know, the first act is going to be roughly 20-something, 30 pages. So I turned it in, and I get a call before class early that morning. The class is like 7 o'clock. I'm getting a call. I'm waking up out of my sleep, and it's her. I'm like, what is she on the phone for? She's like, I just wanted to let you know I really love your screenplay. I just want your permission. You know, in class today, can we be, use your screenplay as the example, to read for the class? And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, we can do that. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of embarrassing because the characters are all black. It's my story. And I'm like the only black guy in the class. So it's like me and one of my white friends reading these two characters, like picture doing Friday or something. You reading like Friday out loud. And you're like, she was like, it's okay. You can cuss. We're all grown here. I'm like, I'm trying to change up what I wrote. Like, I didn't think we was going to be reading this out loud. But that was another thing. And she was like, you should really do something with this later. You should finish this movie later and do something with it. So there were a lot of things. My journey has been kind of even. So there were always these steps. So those are two early ones that kind of jump out, but there was just always these small steps. I always tell people, I'm glad I've taken the steps and I'm still taking these steps. I look at it like the biggest and best is finally about to be here. I'm like, it took this long, now we're coming after it too, and this is going to get bigger, but I enjoy having it this way rather than somebody would have reached down and just gave it to me. Or like when I was y'all age thinking it was going to come from rapping and I was a rapper and doing this. You know, if somebody would have reached and gave me a record deal at that age and I'd have been this famous rapper for 2-3 years, and after 2-3 albums maybe like burned out, or 20-30 years later you just around trying to capture it again. I like it better the way the journey has come. Just there have been a lot of moments like that. Oh, okay, another confirmation, another one. Okay. And it's just a lot of steps.
Okay, so what is like some advice you would give like younger writers who are like, concerned or doubting? Or like
younger writers. So for younger writers, I would say, first of all, write. Make sure you actively write. Have diversity in what you write. And I don't mean diversity in the subject matter, but just the types of things you write. If you like to write stories, branch out, try some poetry, even if it's not your main thing. Spread out, do some stuff, do some creative nonfiction, do something that's like journalistic and see if you could do it, just kind of do that and stay active and stay in the practice of it, and just be ready for when opportunities come and look for opportunities of people to connect with, because I happen to be a writer first when I got to the movies. But there's a lot of filmmakers and directors and stuff who end up trying to write themselves, but it's not really them. And I'm like, if you connect with a writer, as a team, y'all be better. You know, the only reason I write, because that was my thing. I wouldn't mind, you know, not being the writer if that was all I was the director, you know. So I would say with writers kind of network. I guess I say that to say with other people who are going to need writers, because they're going to need them, you know. And especially when you're young, don't be afraid to work for free. You know, build that resume up, you know, treat it like an internship. You know, write things for people. Oh, you need that? I see you got a website. You might need some articles. I'll do a couple for you. And just really get your name out there and stay in the habit of it, and just continue to get sharper with it is what I would suggest mainly.
That's some good advice. If you can go back to your younger self and just tell yourself something that when you were younger, would you like tell yourself, would you tell your younger self anything if you had to? Like if you can go back, just let them know, like, don't do this or don't do that.
You know, that's funny. I was just talking about that meme that's always floating around where it'll be like red pill, blue pill, like red pill. One pill is like millions of dollars right now, and the other one, go back to this age with all the knowledge you have. And I'm like, I'm going back to that age with the knowledge I have, because I'm like, I will kill him you know, with all of this knowledge if I could, you know. Mm-hmm. But not in this age. I would have to be able to go back to the 1980s. I don't want to grow up now and be a little kid. I wouldn't want to be 3 or 4 right now. Nah. But if there was, when people ask that, it really is, it sounds, I would say kind of stay the course. I would, if I go back to my younger self, I would kind of say, you on to something. You know, you're on the right path. Like it's really gonna work. I might give myself a couple little tweaks here and there. Like don't send that $5,000 to that lady out in California. You act like she can get you a record deal. She's gonna take it. What? I might say that, but you know, little things like that. But it would be like overall, it would be like kind of stay the course. Like you really on the right track. What you think it kind of is. And then, you know, certain things, like they say, it turned out the way it is. So certain stuff, like if I'd have said major in English right away, I don't know if it'd have turned, you know, maybe it was meant for me to figure out or struggle in this information systems to appreciate this. So I couldn't even say necessarily go back and don't, you know, major in that, you know. So I think mostly I would kind of say stay the course and just drop a couple hints about a couple people to watch out for. Right. You know, when he shows up, like, get away from
So going into that, like, you have friends like that saw your potential and like where like you were skeptical about, like gave you bad energy or some type of stuff like that.
You said, did I have friends like that really?
Like envious, like secret animosities.
Yeah, you get that, and a lot of time it'll be like, man, you, like, it come out of the blue later, or you see tendencies, but for the most part, yeah, my friends are really encouraging, man. For the most part, I can honestly say they would treat me like, it was like we're all the same, but everybody, you know, people, this is way before a lot of your times. There was a TV show called Doogie Howser, and it was this dude who was a doctor when he was 16. Now, I wasn't no doctor when I was 16. I just graduated high school. But I was just younger than everybody. You know, I started that case when I was 12 years old. I was a freshman, 12 years old, walking around like, I'm 14. Who said I was 12? I'm 14. That was my story, and I was sticking to it. And only the people closest to me knew. But no, my friends would it would be little jokes and stuff. Or I would, you know, people our circle, they would joke about, the little genius kid, ask him this, you know, and it'll be kind of like that, you know, but it wouldn't be. But yeah, there's that one or two you encounter with somebody, you're like, man, why you always trying to, like, man, like you look back, like, man, I think you was feeling some kind of way. Like, you trying to stop, like, you feel threatened by this, something, like, you supposed to be my partner. Like, exactly. You know, so you kind of look back at some, but yeah, overall, my circle, yeah, they were really kind of encouraging. And people, I think a lot of people just looking to see, like, where is he really going to take this? You know, what he going to do? Because, like, I just wonder sometimes, like, what it looked like to other people. Sometimes I've been wanting to ask them because I was living it. But everybody really understood, like, it was something when they found that out, man, he this age, he's smart, he in his grade, 15-year-old senior or whatever. And again, I never shied away from my friends. I never stopped going to the places that people would tell you, don't go around them, you're better than. My mother didn't try to pull me from she kind of let me make certain decisions, and she kept those boundaries. But I just loved that because I walked amongst everybody, but people gave me a certain respect. Like, yeah, he kind of different. He going to do something else. We don't know what it is. So they didn't try to extra pressure me to do other stuff. They would kind of shield me a little bit from certain stuff, but I was still always there and got a chance to live a full, fun teenage life, and never was sheltered and people would tell my mother that. People tried to say, why are you letting him go to public school? He should be at Prairie. He's this, he's that, and I'm thankful that she didn't, and she let me be right here at Case. Yeah.
Okay, so
Glad to.
Okay, one last question because Ms. Day said we got to go. Oh, I forgot just that quick. Like when you were in Ghana, like not movie related, what was like a big takeaway from that?
Oh, wow. I got to speak about that, the culture. And I could talk about that forever. There's a lot of anxiety and things on our shoulders that some that we realize and some that we don't. And when I get there and start moving, it's like all of that just lifts off my shoulders. It's like, I can't really describe almost the peace. It just feels like peace and freedom moving around. And the people are so nice. Like in certain stores, like the culture, I had to get used to it. Like now all of them don't do it, but you can go in a store, like a little convenience store. Like, let me go in here and get some chips and, some drinks, some juice or something before I go back to the house. And they'll come from behind the counter and walk, like the little baskets you might have in a grocery store when you don't feel like pushing a cart, little hand baskets, and walk right on the side of you. But I'm about to get that Sprite. Oh, no, which one do you? I'm going to get that Sprite and get it for you and put it in the bag and follow you around the store with the basket. Okay, I'm going to get those chips, and I'm like, I'm right here. I really could, get that. But that's just an example of some of the cultural things. And music is a huge one because there's always this debate about how much the violence is tied to rap music, and people, like myself who grew up rapping and all that, we get defensive. Like, what you mean? And everybody got a mind of their own. Rap ain't influencing nobody to do nothing, but our music is so aggressive as a whole, and I'm somebody, I got degrees, I'm a film professor, I do all of this, but I listen to some of the most ignorant. I'm like, I'm riding around listening to people who talk about the craziest, like, but it's because that's what we listen to, and that's why I like it. He flowing, like, you my favorite rapper, but you talking about all kind of gangster killing this person, selling this, and I'm riding around to you. But you get over there and the music just sounds like peace. I tell people it's like I see colors. And it's like when you hear this music over and over, you sitting at a restaurant or something, they playing this music. When you start hearing these songs 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times in a row, that just sound like you on the beach with your feet kicked. It just sounds like paradise, like there's nothing aggressive. I'm like, it really puts you in the mind state of, why would I want to argue with somebody right now? Like, I'm chilling, you feel like that. And then I come back here and listen to some of our music, and it really does make you feel like, yeah, if somebody says we say the wrong thing, it might be the day. Yeah. And I'm like, dang, music really, 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 really does have an effect. So that's a big one. The difference in the music, and some of the Afrobeats artists are starting to break through now, so we get a little bit of that, but it's a different level. But yeah, peaceful. No violence, no gun violence. That's the biggest thing. Like, nobody's even trying to fight. Like, you don't see fight. Like, you go somewhere, parties, and it's not even the threat of it. You get used to it. Like, there's 500, 600, 700 people here having fun. There's not going to be an argument. And you know that. You sitting here like it doesn't exist almost. And that's crazy to me. And then I come back here and see how everything is here. And it's like, wow, how did we get here? But people forget that it used to be like that here. So see, people act like my generation is the last generation that saw it both ways. You all came up in an era where it always was people got killed, gun violence always on the news. So people tend to think that that's how it was. Like, no, my generation is the last one. When I was a kid, it was still all the neighbors. We could be a 7, 8-year-old kid at night playing when it's dark, outside. Like, I wouldn't dare let my 8-year-old son be outside right now when it's dark. He can't really be outside when it's light. If I can't see him. But without me, we used to go run the whole block when it's nighttime as a kid, and then crack hit. And I'll stop there. And then everything changed, So, yes, but that's the difference when I go there, just that serenity, that peace. It just makes me feel a way I can never feel here.
Definitely. I got to go one day.
Man. Yes, I tell everybody I'll be going every year several times. So anybody on Instagram, hit me up. If you ever say, I'm thinking about going this year, let me know. I can point you in the direction of some good people because I'm always going.
Okay.
Every year I'll be there. My goal is to have a house. I'm going to have a house over there within 5 years that I can just go back and forth to. So, yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you for letting us interview you today.
Hey, yo, this is cool. Glad to be here.
Yeah,
Glad
for
to be
sure.
here.
Racine Case BSU. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Racine Case BSU on both. Thank y'all for interviewing Mr. Anwar today. Peace.
Yeah.
Thank you.